Welcome back. It's time for another same but different Christmas card series, and I have 5 cards to share with you today using some fun penny black products. Hi, it's Therese from Lostinpaper, and I've got a penny black stamp here, and I'm going to be using it on all 5 cards today. It's called Snowflake Pattern. It's a beautiful background stamp with some really intricate snowflakes on it, and it's a red rubber cling stamp. So I am removing, in my MISTI, I want to stamp it out with my MISTI, I am removing the foam layer just to allow for that extra thickness of these cling stamps, and I just use the same as I normally would with a clear photopolymer stamp. I just pick it up with the lid of the MISTI. I've got a piece of grey cardstock here, and I've stamped it with some Versamark ink and going to be doing some white heat embossing, and this is really pretty. And the good thing about red rubber stamps, if you've never used them before, they really give you a beautiful image when you stamp them out. I also did die cut a crystal frames die. I'm going to use that on this card. I'm going to make all 5 cards. They're all going to be different today, and just hopefully give you lots of ideas to use this particular stamp. But I have also got some of the other fun images from this release, the recent release, and I'm going to be doing some simple colouring here. This one is actually called Heaps of Happy, and it's like heaps of animals on top of each other, so that's really cool. And I'm just doing some really simple colouring with my Copic markers, and I wanted it to be a brown bear. I did add lots of layers of brown to my bear here. Of course, I'm going to list all the colours that I've used today over at my blog, and the link will be below in the description. You'll also be able to find links to the other videos I've made in this series at the end of this video. I'll link them at the end so that if you did miss them. I'll also have the link below for this current 2019 same but different Christmas card series, because I've got lots more to see, just in case you missed those as well. And I wasn't really happy with my blending. Look, and I spilled everywhere. This is Kathy from the Daily Marker, one of her tricks, and it's to add some of the colourless zero blender to a textured cloth and just push it on top of the Copic colouring, and it lifts up just little bits of the colour, and you can't see that your blending wasn't perfect, and it's a great trick, and it adds texture as well to the animal, like the bear. I could never colour like that, and I think it turned out really cute. I'm adding a red sentiment from the Hometown Christmas stamp set to the border of my crystal frames, and then I picked up the image so that I got it exactly where I wanted to, added the embossed grey panel to the front of a card, and then popped up the image and the border. This crystal frames is really pretty intricate die cut. It gives you that nice frame around the edge of an image. I was being lazy here because I had removed my stamp out of the positioner, and I was doing it another way where you can add the ink and then add the cardstock on top, and it did come out very well, but I missed a couple of the edges, so I'll show you what I did with that panel a little bit later on. So I did do it again and stamped it with my MISTI the second time, and the good thing about using a MISTI is that you can restamp if it doesn't stamp perfectly the first time. And I'm just colouring up this little fella here, and he's from a set called Snow Builders, and doing some really simple colouring yet again. I've cut this piece of cardstock, it's Nina 80 £, larger than I want, because I actually want to put a frame over him, and that just gives me a bit of leeway. And so I did use the crystal frames, the smaller die cut, to cut the window out here, and then popped it up on some fun foam, and then I've added it to a side fold card. The sentiment, fa la 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 la, is from the Holiday Snippets stamp set, which I use every year. I adore it. Now I've got some red cardstock, and I do actually do a couple of pieces of this red snowflake cardstock. So another card a little bit later on, I'll show you exactly what I did with that one. But this one, I die cut the reindeer leaps, And I added Merry Builder's sentiment to the front of a darker grey panel and adhered that with some fun foam on the top of a square card. I actually added the reindeer on some fun foam and attached that to the front. This is a very clean and simple card, this one, but I really like how it turns out. That reindeer is a really cool one. So this is what I did with the other panel, the one that I didn't stamp perfectly. I have stamped an image, and this is also from the Snow Builders stamp set, and I'm just colouring it directly over this. And these grey snowflakes were actually using the smoky grey versafine onyx ink. I was originally going to do this particular card with some red snowflakes, but because I'd already stamped it, I didn't want to waste it, and I just made do. And I am adding some really simple shading and colouring to this card. And then I did cut it down to fit on the front of my top fold card and made it a bit smaller. I added a sentiment from the Frosty Hello stamp set and some Prisma glitter, which once it's dry I just use a soft brush to get the rest of the glitter away, because you will find that it sticks to the ink as well as to the glue. This card is another fairly clean and simple one. I've stamped out, it's a little girl, a part of an image, and it's from a set called Sweet Sledder. A lot of these sets are just mini sets, so they're really quite affordable, and you can use them in so many different ways, you know, and they often have like a little sentiment. I will link all the sets below, and I will list them at the very end, so if you watch to the end of the video, you'll see a list of the stamps as well. I'm doing some Prismacolor pencil colouring this time and just adding some simple shading. And this is on some pale grey cardstock. It's the oyster grey. And when I'm colouring on coloured cardstock, I don't usually like to use my Gamsol. I usually just like to let the pencils blend with themselves. And throughout I've kept the similar colour theme. You may have noticed the greys, the reds, the greens, and some brown and white. Just makes it all matchy matchy and prettier in the photos. And I think one thing that really does make a difference is to come in with grey pencils at the end of colouring. Because I did keep the colouring very simple, just by adding some warm grey and some cool grey, it added such a lot of depth without having to overshade, because it does take time. Pencil colouring takes a lot more time, I find, than Copic colouring. And once I'd finished all my colouring, I actually came in and added some white ink splatters to the front of this piece, which is actually cut a little bit smaller than my card front, and set that aside to dry. Now this is what I did with the other piece of red cardstock with the white heat embossed snowflakes from the Snowflake Pattern. I added it to some fun foam and cut it out with the Jumbo Joy, which is a really, really nice, fun size to put on a card front. And you can swap the O out for an image if you wanted to, just to add a little bit of fun. But today I decided to use all 3 letters and pop them up on the front of a card. Thanks so much for stopping by. If you like this video, please click on the thumbs up button to let me know that you did. And if you haven't already, it'd be awesome if you could subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate every visit here, and look forward to seeing you again next time. Till then, happy Christmas paper crafting. Bye.